This is a quick guide to the Minecraft Garden Awakens update. I've done a bunch of videos on different things in this update, but this is going to be an overall guide to go over everything. Let's get started. All the new blocks and items added in this update can be found in the Pale Garden biome. The Pale Garden is a new biome that is a variant of the Dark Forest and will have gray blocks and vegetation. It is found in a similar area as the Dark Forest in forested areas, usually bordering birch forest, jungle, and old growth taiga biomes, which are the ones with taller trees, but not the taiga biomes. The Pale Garden is very distinctive looking as it will have a grayish texture to all the blocks and have blocks that are only found in this biome. The Pale Oak Trees. This is a new tree that will have pale oak logs, pale oak leaves, can have pale hanging moss, and also have creaking hearts in it. These trees grow similar to the dark oak trees in that you will have to place the pale oak saplings in a 2x2 square and apply bone meal to them. Also generating the pale oak tree will not create a creaking heart. Creaking hearts can only be found in this biome when it generates. Pale oak logs. This is a new type of wood that has a grayish texture to it. The interesting aspect is that it can be crafted into the usual types of wooden items. For example, stripped wood, planks, stairs, slabs, signs, hanging signs, buttons, pressure plates, doors, and fences. This will give you another colored wood that is white. Pale oak leaves. The pale oak leaves will be a part of the canopy for the pale oak trees. The unique property of these leaves that, like the cherry trees, they will emit a falling particle. In this case, it will be a dull greenish gray and are leaf shaped. The pale hanging moss. This is a block that can be found under the pale oak logs or the pale oak leaves. It can be attached to the bottom of these blocks. It only drops as an item if silk touch enchanted tools or shears are used on it. The pale hanging moss won't naturally grow in the game. You will have to use bone meal on it for it to grow. Also, when you generate pale oak trees, there will not be any pale hanging moss on it. It can only be found on pale oak trees when the biome generates. Pale moss blocks. These will be found on the ground of the Pale Garden biome. These have the exact same properties as the moss block. When you apply bone meal to it, it'll turn the surrounding stone, dirt, and deep slate blocks into pale moss blocks. However, it will only generate pale moss carpet, short and tall grass on the blocks when using bone meal. You can't get eyeblossoms from it. Pale moss carpet. Also, this appears on the ground of the Pale Garden biome and is similar to the moss carpet. When placed next to a block, there's a vine texture that appears on the block. A second block on top will create a too tall vine texture. You can break the second vine texture or apply bone meal to the vine texture to get a too tall one. The Eyeblossom. This is a unique flower that will have a texture that changes depending on if it is day or night. During the day, the flower will be closed, and during the night it will be open. Even though the eye is open at night and looks like it is glowing, it will not emit light. It can be broken by any tool or by hand. Also, whether it is open or closed, it will be in that state when broken as an item. You can generate eyeblossoms in the Pale Garden biome by applying bone meal to the grass blocks. In Bedrock Edition, you can apply bone meal to the eyeblossom to get more eyeblossoms in the surrounding area, even outside the biome. Observers and skulk sensors can detect the change from opening to closing or vice versa. Calibrated skulk sensors can detect the change as it is a vibration of 11. A closed eyeblossom in the crafting grid will give you a gray dye, and open one will give you an orange dye. Using an open eyeblossom in the suspicious stew recipe gives the blindness effect, as where the closed eyeblossom will give you the nausea effect. Open eyeblossoms can give bees a poison effect for 1.25 seconds. You can also give the bee the open eyeblossom, giving them the poison effect but not angering them. Open eyeblossoms can lead bees, but you can't use them to breed bees and use on baby bees. Bees aren't attracted to the closed eyeblossoms. Eyeblossoms within 2 blocks of an oak, birch, and cherry sapling that grow have a 5% chance to have a bee's nest with 2 to 3 bees in it. Eyeblossoms also have a 65% chance to increase the compost level by 1. The Creaking Heart. This is a living block that will be found at the top of trunks in the pale oak trees and may be covered by pale oak logs. The Creaking Hearts will be active or disabled. Active is when it has a pale oak log above and below it. It will be illuminated, have an orange orange texture and make an eerie sound. To get the Creaking Heart to drop as a block, you will have to use a Silk Touch enchanted tool, otherwise it will break the block. The Creaking Heart also has a crafting recipe of a block of resin and 2 pale oak logs in the crafting table. If you're having a hard time finding it, wait until a creaking mob spawns. Hitting this mob will create a trail to the Creaking Heart it is linked to. To spawn a creaking mob, it has to be night or during a thunderstorm in the overworld. It'll spawn in a 33 by 17 by 33 area centered around the Creaking Heart. It has to be on a solid block or the top surface block, can't be on leaves, non-solid blocks, or have liquids in the Creaking's hitbox. The Creaking spawn will be linked to the Creaking Heart, stays within a 32 block radius of the heart. The Creaking Heart can only spawn one creaking at a time. The Creaking mob. When the Creaking spawns, it will be in an unalerted state and wander around aimlessly. Once the Creaking enters within 12 blocks of the player's field of vision, it will become alert. It will then stand still when the player is looking at it, and when the player looks away, it will move towards them and use a headbutt attack. The headbutt attack will do 2 damage on easy, 3 on normal, and 4 damage on hard difficulty. The Creaking is invulnerable to all damage in the game and can't be killed. To despawn the Creaking, it has to be pushed out of a 32 block radius of the heart it is linked to. It has to become day, or the thunderstorm has to end, or the Creaking Heart it is linked to has to be broken. When the player hits the Creaking mob, this creates a trail to the Creaking Heart and generates 2 to 3 resin clumps on the pale oak logs within a 2 block distance of the Creaking Heart. There's a 5-second cooldown each time the Creaking is hit. The resin clumps that generate around the Creaking Heart can be hit by any tool or by hand, and will drop 1 resin clump that won't increase with the Fortune enchantment. Resin clumps can be found 2 to 4 in the Woodland Mansion at 44.5% in the Java edition and 16.1% in the Bedrock edition. Woodland Mansions are found in the Dark Forest, so a similar area as the Pale Garden biomes. 9 resin clumps can be crafted into a resin block that can be used in the crafting recipe for a Creaking Heart. The resin clumps can be smelted in the furnace to get a resin brick, and 9 resin brick can be crafted into resin bricks that can further be crafted into slabs, stairs, and walls. 2 resin bricks slabs can be crafted into chiseled resin bricks, plus a resin brick can be used in the smithing table along with a piece of armor and an armor trim to give an orange colored armor trim. Those are all the new additions in the game. There are also a lot of changes plus 203 fixes. Overall, I think this is going to be a fun little update, as now we'll get interesting updates like this occasionally around the year instead of one big one a year.